Well, hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. My name is Peter Drakulic, and today I would like to be presenting a few interesting modeling techniques for making a simple rig, FK rig of course, mechanical rig, and this rig, we're going to be applying this rig onto a simple mechanical object such as a fan, a fan. First of all, let's go ahead and model our fan, which is going to be a really typical fan. So let's get started. First of all, let's press 3 and switch over to our side view, and then press 5 to toggle the orthographic view. Having selected our cube, let's move it to another layer, and now let's press Shift+C to center our cursor at the origin, and Shift+A and add a mesh circle. Go down here where the number of vertices are and set this to something as low as 8. It should be fine. So alright, so we have our circle here, and now let's tab into edit mode and can switch over to the side view by pressing 3 and press E to extrude all our vertices upwards somewhere here. Then press E to extrude again, scale them down a little bit, and then press E and extrude them all the way up by pressing middle mouse button, and so that we can constrain our extrusion along the z-axis, right? So let's say that this is going to be the base, or the leg of our fan. So first of all, let's go ahead and add by pressing Ctrl+1 or Ctrl+2. In our case, Ctrl+2. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier to our object, and go up here to the shading option here and select smooth. Now, as you can see, it has been smoothed out more than we would like this to be. Perhaps, so let's tab into mode and add some more loop cuts here. Perhaps select this loop by alt-right clicking and scale it, and then add another one loop here and scale this as well, and another one loop by pressing Ctrl+R. We can add loops, scale it as well, making this shape, which is rather interesting. And as you can see, we have some artifacts here due to the fact that not all normals are pointing outside. So to fix this, tab into edit mode, select all of them by pressing A and Ctrl+M, force them to recalculate the normals outside. So we have made a basic basis for our fan. Now let's go up here where it is this border of vertices. Deselect all of them and then border select those vertices, but be careful. If this is activated down here, this button here, you would like to deactivate this option, so we can also select those vertices that are not facing towards the camera. So now border select, and we have selected all of them, and press Shift+S and center our cursor to the selected. So I placed my cursor here. Now tab out my edit mode, and now I want to make the basic motor, or the cabin of the motor of the engine of my fan. So let's go ahead and press Shift+A and add. Let's switch to the side view. Shift+A, add a mesh UV sphere. Well, now let's tab into mode and rotate my UV sphere along the x-axis by pressing X, by 90 by pressing 90. Alright, and now, well, when it comes to a shape like this one, alright, I want to make something like this one, okay, and when it comes to something like that, I would like to use a primitive for this section here, right, for this D section here. I would like to use a sphere cut in halves. Alright, so let's go ahead and get rid of the grease pencil layer really quick. Alright, And by selecting just this part, half of the vertices, by B border selecting them and deleting them, alright, I have now this hemisphere here. Let's move it a little bit upwards by pressing Ctrl if needed, so we can constrain our motion, our movement into increments. And now Alt right click, select this border here of vertices and extrude them along the Y axis by either by pressing Y or by pressing middle mouse button and extruding them somewhere here. Now it's always a good idea in modeling when we can reuse some elements of our mesh, for example, if I would like to make a shape like this somewhere here, right, okay, something like this, I would like to take this, right, this part and duplicate it perhaps, alright, and mirror it along the Y-axis. So this is what I'm going to do in just a while. So all I'm going to do is that I'm going to border select those vertices here, perhaps middle mouse button B, so I can deselect those vertices, and Shift+D duplicate them and move them along the Y-axis somewhere here. Now I can always press Ctrl+M and Y, okay, Ctrl+M, Y, so I can mirror them along the Y-axis. First of all, I have to for some reason the Ctrl+M shortcut does work for the moment, so all I have to do is to go down here to the mirror, to the mesh menu, and mirror it along the Y global in our case. So just press that, and now mesh once more, okay, alright. So now I can select this border here, shift select this border here, and press spacebar and bring this very useful, very handy search menu and search for a new tool that a user informed me that exists in recent versions of Blender, which is the bridge edge loop to edge loop tool. Very handy, very useful. So just click on that, okay, and here you have it. You have a reusable. By reusing a parts of the mesh, you can save time sometimes when it comes to modeling. So we could always, of course, press Alt O, enable the proportional fall off, and just move it a little bit, you know, something like that perhaps, and even better. Well, we can. All right. So when we are happy with the result, okay, we can go ahead and smooth it out, and always select all of the faces and Ctrl+N to recalculate the normals outside, okay, and we can always select this border, extrude it, right click to cancel the extrusion, scale it down, so we have something like that, okay, alright. So now it comes, now let's go ahead and model the cage in which our fan blades are rotating. So in order to do so, let's go ahead and add a Shift+A and add a mesh UV sphere, right? And let's keep the vertices, number of vertices and the rings at the default as they are, and tabulated mode, rotate this along the x-axis by 90, right? Bring this somewhere up here and scale it up, right, quite a bit. Move this somewhere here, and now what I'm going to do is to scale it along the y-axis quite a bit, somewhere here, right, something like that, okay. Now let's go ahead and select by B border select those vertices here and just go ahead and delete those vertices. So I am left, excuse me, I am presented with this half part of this. Well, the problem now is that I need to make this, to convert this in a kind of wire, wire geometry, whereas here it is solid for the moment. Well, let's go ahead and see how this can be done. And first of all, let's go ahead and select this edge loop by alt right clicking, press Ctrl+I to select the inverse geometry, and just go ahead and delete, plus this vertex here, the pole vertex, and just go ahead and delete the vertices. So here we have just this tiny little part of our circle. Okay, and now let's go ahead, tab out edit mode, Alt+C, and convert this into a curve from mesh text. Okay, so convert this into a curve. And now what we're going to do is to take advantage of the bevel option we have for curves in order to give it some thickness here. So let's go ahead and add a curve circle, and let's give it the name by going up here to the properties panel, to this little cube icon, and name it as curve profile. So this is our curve profile. Let's scale it down quite a bit, and now let's go ahead, select this curve, and go here to the object data menu, and all the way, half the way down, you are going to see the bevel object option and select curve profile. Now I have assigned the shape of circle to be the profile for this curve here. So let's go ahead and select my curve profile and really scale this down quite a bit. And as you can see in real time, while I'm scaling this down, my curve has been updated. The good thing about this is that it's fully procedural, so you can adjust stable and you can play with this at your heart's content. So now let's switch over to my front view by hitting 1 in my numpad, right? And now let's go ahead and well, first of all, let's place our cursor. First of all, let's go ahead and Ctrl+Shift+Alt+C and make the origin to the geometry for this part here, and I want to place my cursor just here at the center of this object. Also Shift+S and cursor to select it. Right? Now let's go ahead and at this point here add a curve circle. Well, rotate our circle along the x-axis by 90 and scale it up quite a bit until it comes somewhere here. Right? As you can see, now switch over to your side view and bring this along the y-axis until it reaches it, alright, until it comes somewhere here. Alright, now having selected the circle, Shift, select the other curve, and Ctrl+J, and now we have actually merged those two curves into one curve. Now, being at the side view, tab into edit mode, select one control point of the circle, Ctrl+L to select all the connected control points, and press Shift+D to duplicate them. Right click to constrain the movement along the y-axis, and now scale them somewhere here. Right? And let's repeat this process. Shift+D, duplicate them, move them along the y-axis, scale them down somewhere here. Right? We have something like that. Of course, you can always, if you wish, readjust the positioning of the parts, but don't forget to scale them as well somewhere here. So we have something like that. Now let's go ahead and select now this one control point from this perpendicular curve, and Ctrl+L to select all the connected control points. Shift+D, okay, to duplicate them and just rotate them along the y-axis, which is the axis that is going towards the screen, right? And but not around the this point, but instead press period. So we press period and we rotate them around the cursor. Well, for how many by how many degrees? Well, that depends. If this is 90 degrees, and we want them, our fan cage, to have 8 of them, let's say. So we have to rotate them along the y-axis by 45 degrees. Right, so 45 degrees. Repeat the procedure. Shift+D, right click to cancel, or R to rotate 45 degrees. Shift+D, right click to cancel, rotate around the y-axis by 45 degrees. RY 45. Shift+D, right click to cancel, RY 45. Okay. Alright, and now as you can see, we could go ahead and just Shift Ctrl+L by using a combination of Shift Ctrl+L, select all those 3 here whatever parts, Shift+D duplicate them, and Ctrl+M, and mirror them along the x-axis. Well, for some reason I have to go down here along the X global, right? So if I now tab out edit mode, I have this. So I have something like that. Now all I have to do is to go up here to the properties panel and add a modifier to the curve, which is going to be a mirror modifier. Okay, so just select a mirror modifier, and from this axis option here, just disable X, enable Y. Now I can tab it in mode, select all of the control points and move them so they come closer together, right? Somewhere here, and then tab edit mode and move the whole system somewhere here. So I have now made this cage. Of course, it's not complete. It needs some things, additional parts, but we're going to be modeling them in just a while. So switch over to the side view, and just now let's go ahead and Shift+S and Shift+A and add a mesh, a UV sphere. Okay, and now I'm going to be modeling the fan, the blades themselves. Right, so just rotate this along the x-axis by 90. Okay. So now let's move it. Let's move the sphere, grab it, and move it somewhere here. Right. Let's switch to the front view and Shift+S. Move the cursor to the selected this part, and now Shift+S selection to the cursor. So I have centered it, aligned. I have aligned this sphere to this engine cabin, whatever this is. So move it somewhere here, and let's move it also somewhere there, and scale it down quite a bit, somewhere here, right? And now tab edit mode and border select those vertices, and just go ahead and delete the vertices. And now I can always select this vertex, and by pressing Alt+O and also selecting this loop here, it's loop perhaps, by pressing Alt+O and enabling the proportional fall off, scale this down a little bit, so I'm giving it this, this kind of more this pinch here, okay, which is usual for fans. Alright, for typical fans. So tab edit mode now. Well, and I switch over to the front view, and I add a plane while I am in the edit mode, right? And I select my plane, and I rotate this, as you can see, around the around the x-axis by 90. Right? I come, and I bring this somewhere here in the front, switch to the side view, bring somewhere here, right, and somewhere here, scale it along the z-axis somewhat. Let's disable the proportional fall off, right, and now having selected those two edges, extrude them along the x-axis, middle mouse button, and perhaps extrude them once more and scale them down. Also those two scale along the z-axis, somewhere here, and select also those two vertices. And why not Ctrl+L and select the connected geometry and Shift+H to hide the cone. Right, now having selected those two, scale them down, Ctrl+R, add two lookouts here, and just go ahead, selecting those two vertices, move them somewhere here to make this slight curvature here for the axis, right? And let's select those faces here and bring them a little bit inwards, and now select this edge here, and by pressing Alt-O and enabling the proportional fall off, okay, let's rotate this along the x-axis by giving it a quite a few, you know, I mean quite a big, you know, fall off, something like that. Let's smooth this out. Geometry, perhaps. Well, let's go ahead and try once more. Perhaps select also those two edges here and rotate them along the x-axis. Let's try once more, giving it a well, I would like to add one more look at here so I can help with the deformation. Rotate along the x-axis somewhere here. Alright, okay, so now smooth this out, and let's go ahead and go up here to the properties panel and add modifier solidify. The solidify modifier, all it does is that it adds some thickness to our mesh. Alright, so here we have a thickness. Let's add the split modifier, okay, for the moment. And now let's go ahead and add a you know, a subsurface subdivision surface modifier. Now let's go ahead here to the solidify crease option and crease it. As you can see here, I have that kind, and let's crease it, and let's increase the amount of solidify or the amount of thickness. Alright, and also let's add some creasiness to the other part of the geometry. So I have made something like that. Perhaps I gave it too much thickness, so I'm trying to find something like that. Alright, so something like that. So we have our fan blade, whatever. Switch over to the front view by pressing 1, and now let's go ahead and let's add a modifier array to our fan blade. But what we're going to do now, well, it's that we're going to be adding an empty object here. Let's go ahead and, having selected the object data of the empty, let's increase the size somewhat so we can see it much clearly. Right, and now let's go ahead and having selected my fan blade, okay, let's go ahead and going to the modifiers tab, let's close them. Alright, and keep only the array modifier, and select, uncheck the relative object and select object offset, and make the empty to be the object offset. Okay. Well, as you can see, we have a rather not a very strange result. But if we are going to press Ctrl+A and apply the rotation and assume the scale of the blade fan object, this scale is being we have no problem with that. If we also go ahead and press Ctrl+A and apply the location, also we have no problem, because now the center of geometry of our fan blade object is exactly where the center of geometry, the origin of our empty is. That's the important thing to have in mind. Press Ctrl+A and apply the location, rotation, or scale. This will solve most of the issues you might have when trying to apply the array modifier. So now select the empty object and rotate it by 90 degrees along the y-axis, by 90, right? And let's go ahead, select by fan blade object. Let's add 4. Let's make this 4. right? And let's bring the origin to 3D cursor, right? So it's at exactly the same point where my empty, as I told you before, where my empty is found. So I have made something like that. Perhaps I want to go to the solidify modifier and decrease, lower down the amount of creasiness somewhere here, just a tiny bit, so it all right, it looks more like a a fan blade now. Okay, so now another issue is that let's go ahead and having selected all those tabulated mode and press Alt-H to hide all the geometry, I mean the cone. And now, well, I could go here and having selected my cone, in order to avoid duplicated parts, let's go ahead and and separate the selection. So now I have made my cone a different object. Okay, so actually I can go ahead and really delete for the cone the modifiers, so I don't have any additional geometry that I really don't need to have. Alright, so now have selected my cone, tabulated mode, select this edge loop here, and press E to extrude, and then press S to scale by having disabled first the proportional fall off. Scale them down, and by going to the side view, extrude it along the, so we can have something like that. Of course, this is not exactly how it should be, alright, we know that, but we're going to be fixing this in just a while, but it's just a schematic view. Of course, we can always go ahead and make a cut here and scale it up, for example, excuse me, and another cut perhaps somewhere here. Another cut here, alright, and now let's select this edge loop, scale it up, okay, and make Ctrl+R and select this loop and Alt+S, scale it up quite a bit. So we can make something like that. Of course, this is just imaginary, alright, you can do whatever you want. I mean, you can make this the way you like it, alright. Okay, so let's go ahead and make something like that perhaps. Well, so adding some, of a more mechanical look to our fan. You know what? We can always go ahead and just, well, I could always go ahead and just delete those vertices here. Okay. And those vertices, and just bring all of them backwards somewhere here. Okay, and make this something like that perhaps, and also select those vertices here and extrude them. Alright, and just extrude those vertices here along the y-axis somewhere like that. So, alright, and okay, and add a modifier, perhaps edge split for the cone, so I can make this sharp edge here. Okay, alright, and now let's go ahead and switch over to my front view and add a mesh circle. Make this something like 8 vertices and scale it up somewhere here, rotate along the x-axis by 90. If you see this is really big, scale this down. Alright, something like that. Bring this all the way to the front. Alright, scale this a little bit down somewhere here, and perhaps tabulated mode and extrude them. And right click to cancel, scale them down. Alright, you can always scale them to 0 if you want. So we have this kind of, geometry here, this little, Alright, so in general, this is our simple fan, okay, the modeling of our fan. Well, we are going, lastly, we're going to be modeling the cable. So let's go ahead and add a curve by switching over to the right view and pressing Shift+A Bezier curve. Right, add the Bezier curve and scale it up quite a bit so we can see it clearly, and rotate it along the x-axis by 90. Right, perhaps. Alright, tab in mode, select this vertex here and grab it. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and rotate it along the z-axis by 90 degrees. Now switch over to the side view, and you can always get rid of those arrows here, those handles here, not handles and normals, by pressing N and going down here where it writes curve display and deselect normals. So now we can get rid of those normals here and scale this down and move it somewhere here perhaps. Alright, grab this and move it somewhere here. We can always we are going to make the power cord now, the power cable, and you can always press V to change the handle type into automatic. What this is good for is that you can add then by pressing Ctrl and left mouse click and add some some points, and this is going to be adjusted accordingly to the tangent of the previous point. So right, this is automatic option. So since we have made this something like that, we can always go ahead and, let's say this is the cable. Alright, we can always go ahead to the object curve data, object data, and select as bevel object our curve profile from before. Okay, and well, let's see. Okay, and now let's select our curve profile and Shift+D duplicate it, because you can see as a chord is rather thick. So I want to select our curve profile and just duplicate this curve profile somewhere here and make this curve profile number 2. Okay, and now let's make these to be the 001 curve profile, the profile of my cable. So now I can independently scale this down. So here it is, my cable. Right, so this is a very simple modeling of a of a fan. Okay, and we can always go ahead if we want to add some detail and Shift+S cursor to select it, and Shift+A add a box here, a cube, excuse me. Right, okay, tab into the mode, scale along the z-axis, scale along the x-axis, and now go ahead and Ctrl+R, add some lookouts here. Alright, and just select those edges here and extrude them outwards so we can add some some kind of plug, whatever this is. Okay, extrude them and scale them down, but in this case along the individual origins, scale them x-axis, extrude them, well, something like that, whatever. And this is going to be our little plug, whatever. Okay, something like that. Okay, so, and smooth this out and add the modifier, perhaps edge split as well here. Okay, well, this is very simple. Of course, scale this down quite a bit. Well, this is just, I don't have the exact dimensions for the moment, but just for you to take the general idea. I don't know the exact dimensions of this plug, whatever, but just for having you an idea. So that was the modeling part, and we have made this fan here, and at the next tutorial, in our next tutorial, we're going to try to apply a simple FK rig, mechanical rig with FK properties, so we can control the rotation and perhaps animate the rotation of the blade using some compositing, a bit of compositing for adding some vector motion blur and things like that. So hope you enjoyed it, if you learned something out of this, and if you like this, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time with a rather interesting topic. Stick with our tutorials. If you like them, don't forget to subscribe. Until then, hopefully soon, have fun and goodbye.